Welcome. I am Advocate Bhagyashree Bhosle. In today's lecture, we shall discuss about the sources of law. This is one of the important topic in the study of the jurisprudence. Jurisprudence is basically the study of the theory and philosophy of the law. In a jurisprudence, we do not deal with the practically applicable pieces of the statutory law. Rather, we try to understand the very essence of the law and its various dimensions. The word sources of a law is used in a various senses. The common source of a law is a custom, codified laws, judicial precedent, etc. With the growing popularity of the codified law, the precedent in modern times replaces the various other sources of the law. There are many differences among the jurists regarding the sources of a law. According to Austin, the sources of a law include the three meanings. First of all, direct authority means sovereign is a source of a law. Then second, historical document, it means the codes. And third, causes that make the society's law the force of a law, means the legislation and the customs, etc. According to C.K. Allen, he uses it in the sense of agencies through which the rules of a conduct acquire the character of the law by becoming fixed, uniform and mandatory. According to Holland, the apparent source of a law is sometimes referred to the quarter where we can gain the knowledge of the law. According to Salmond, there are two main sources of a law. One important source of a law according to Salmond is a formal source. Formal sources are those sources from which the law derives its force and validity. It is the will of the state as manifested in a statute or the decision of the court. Professor Allen considered that the concept of the formal source is wholly and necessary because it simply means that the state will recognize a law that is a law. Then second important source of a law according to Salmond is a material source. These sources derive the matter but not the validity. These sources are further divided into two sources, legal sources and historical sources. The legal sources are that the source which is not only in fact but also in a law and officially. Those are legislations, precedents, customs and conventional law. Is based on an agreement and etc. Historical source. In historical source of a law are those sources that are really in fact only and unauthorized. Example, legal writing, juristic opinions, foreign judgments, common, etc. Common sources of a law. There are three major sources of a law that can be identified in any modern society are as follows. First of all, legislation, judicial, precedents and customs are three important sources of a law in a modern times. Then we shall see the legislation as a source of a law. The legislation is considered as the most important source of a law. The term legislation is derived from the Latin word legis, which means the law, and Latin means to make or a set. Therefore, the word legislation means the making of the law. Legislation is the source of a law which is included in the declaration of a legal rules by the competent authority. The legislature is the direct source of a law. The legislature frames new laws, revises old laws and repeal the existing laws in all countries. It is the most important source of a law making in a modern times. The word legislature means to make the law. Its scope is now limited to the particular form of a lawmaking. This not only creates new rule of a law but also removes the existing inconvenient rule. There are three main types of legislation. There are two main type of legislation. One is a supreme legislation and another is a subordinate legislation. Supreme law is an expression of the legislative will of the supreme authority in the state. It is a supreme because no authority can modify, amend or control it. It transfers sovereign or a supreme legislative power to state and is therefore unable to be repealed by any other legislative authority. For example, act of a parliament and the ordinance and other laws made by the president and governor is an example of the supreme legislation. Then we shall see the subordinate legislation. Subordinate law is that which transfer any authority other than the sovereign legislative power and is therefore dependent on some superior or a supreme legislative authority for its existence or legitimacy. It comes from the subordinate legislature or any other authority and is subject to the repeal or approval of the superior law. For example, it includes the rules, regulation, bylaws, order, direction, notification, etc. made by the various authorities, municipalities, universities and the government department, Supreme Court and High Court, etc. Then we shall see the types of a subordinate legislation. There are 5 important types of a subordinate legislation which are as follows. First of all is a colonial legislation. These laws made by the colonial countries for their colonies and the countries controlled by them are known as the colonial laws. The second important type of a subordinate legislation is executive legislation. Although the main function of the executive is to enforce the laws, in some cases the power to make the rules is delegated to the various departments of the government which are called as the subordinate delegated legislation. Then third important type of a subordinate legislation is a judicial legislation. This means that the rules of a procedure made by the superior court under the authority for their own guidance which are entrusted to them for this purpose. In other words, superior courts have the power to make the rules for the regulation of their procedure. Then the fourth important type of a subordinate legislation is a municipal legislation. Sometimes municipal authorities have a right to establish a special laws for the district under their control. They are allowed to make the bylaws for the limited purposes within their territories. These are the laws of a local body such as a municipal or a corporation. Then fifth and last type of a subordinate legislation is autonomous legislation. It is the process of a law making by the individuals for their own guidance by the state. These are the autonomous bodies such as the municipal council and universities. Then we shall see the judicial precedents as a source of a law. Judicial precedents is an important source of a law, but it's neither as modern as a legislation nor as old as a custom. Precedent means the judgment or the decision of the court cited as a right of an implied legal principle. The doctrine of a precedent, also known as the stare decisis, which means standing by judgment, is based on the principle that like cases should be decided alike. Once a case has been decided by the judge to apply the principle, when the similar facts arising in the future should also be decided by applying the same principle. This does not always save the time and labor of the judges, but also maintain the certainty, uniformity and predictability in the application of the law. There are certain types of judicial precedents. One of the important is a original precedent, and second declaratory precedent, third one authoritative precedent, and fourth one persuasive precedent. Judicial decisions are of two types, namely those that make the new law and those which apply known as a systematic principle to a particular fact of the law. Both such decisions are considered precedent. The reason for this is that court have an official guide to determine the future dispute. New law making decisions are called as a original precedent, while those that apply known and systematic principle of the law to a particular fact of a case are called as a declaratory precedent. A declaratory precedent is not a source of a law, but while original precedent are the core principle. Then we see the authoritative and persuasive precedent. The classification of the precedent into the authoritative and persuasive is widely accepted classification. An authoritative precedent is that a judge is bound to consider whether he accepts it or not. In other words, the judge has a no choice. For example, the decision of the Supreme Court of India are binding on a judges of a Kerala High Court. Similarly, a decision of the Kerala High Court is a binding on a lower court of a Kerala. In the system of a precedent, the decision of a superior are always regarded as a authoritative precedent. The authoritative precedent is further classified into the two categories: absolute and conditional precedent. And persuasive precedent is one of that has a no compulsion to follow. Here he has the option to decide whether to follow such a precedent or not. If he is convinced of the guilt of a virtue of a decision, he can follow it, otherwise he can refuse it. For example, a decision of a Delhi High Court is only persuasive precedent as far as for the Madras High Court is a concern. There is no compulsion to follow it. Foreign decision can also be considered as a persuasive precedent. Then precedent, there are two major principles of the precedent. One is a ratio decidendi and another is a obiter dicta. An official principle of the judicial decision is a ratio decidendi. It contains the principle of the law formulated by the judge. It is necessary for that decision of the case. It has the force of a law and court to be binding. Ratio decidendi means reason for the decision. Judge should mention the reason for that particular decision. And another important principle of a precedent is a obiter dicta, means said by the way. The obiter dictum stated by the judge is not some binding right. The judge may declare a certain general principle related to law, but it may be unnecessary and irrelevant to the issues before him. Those unnecessary statements of a law that enforce a rule are called as a obiter dicta. Then third important source of a law is a custom. Custom is the oldest and important source of a law. They exist as established uses. They are nothing but uses and habits. Custom means uniformity of a conduct of the people, which is followed by any part of the community or a whole community. According to Holland, custom means a course of a conduct that is commonly observed by the society. According to Caton, custom as to those rules of a human action established by the uses and regarded as to be legally binding by those to whom the rules apply, which are adopted by the court and applied by the source of a law, because they are generally in a whole or in part followed by the political society. According to Austin, custom are a standard of a direct that the sovereign suddenly sees and does not conform to the law set by the political superior. Example of the custom is as follows. The example of a custom is a Saptapadi. It is most important in Hindu marriage ceremony. Saptapadi means 7 steps after tying the Mangal Sutra. The newly wedded couple held the ground in a 7 step as a sacred fire called the Saptapadi. It is stated in a section 7 of the Hindu Marriage Act 1955. Then we shall see the kinds of a custom. Custom without the sanction and custom with sanction. Such a custom without the sanction. Such a custom are not mandatory in a nature and are followed because there is a public opinion. Custom with the sanction. The custom are tied to nature and enforced by the state. This custom can further be divided into two categories: legal custom and conventional custom. A legal custom is that It's custom whose authority is absolute. It has the force of a law and it is recognized and enforced by the court of a law. Legal custom has also divided into again two parts. First, general custom means custom for all, and particular custom means local custom. General custom duties for all. This is a common custom that consequent all through the nation and it has a rule that everyone should follow. Local or a special custom is another important type of a custom. A local custom is a one that is a practiced in a particular area, which is a region, city or a area. They do not estimate the area of the land as they may be. Then we shall see the another important type of a custom is a conventional custom. Similarly, a conventional custom is called as a usage. It is a setup whose authority depends on its acknowledgement, organization in an agreement between the assemblies assembled by it. In a basic term, a conventional custom is a contingency and the condition is that it will tie on the parties only to the occasion and that is accepted and consolidated by them in their agreement. Then we shall see the requisites of the valid custom. There are many essential of a valid customs which are as follows. First important requisite of a valid custom is a custom must be an ancient. A custom cannot be created in a day. It should be long lasting one. Unlike England where a custom has existed from ancient time, in India long usages or observation is a sufficient. It may be considered as a valid custom if it is a ancient and times immemorial. In a Gokulchand versus Praveen Kumar, the Supreme Court decided to measure the validity of a custom and clearly stated that it should be ancient and of a historical period. Then second important requisite for a valid custom is a custom must be continuous, certain and precise. The custom must have been in use continuously. It can't break by any particular community for a time period. It must continuous process and it should not be a vague or indefinite. Its existence must be proved by the clear and unambiguous evidence. In Wilson versus Wilson, in this case, the Privy Council said that if a particular custom is a vague, unclear and cannot understand by the party, then the particular custom will be declared as a null and void by the court. Third important requisite for the valid custom is a reasonableness. There must be a custom within the limit of the reason to be considered legally binding. Therefore, if the contradict the principle of the justice, equality and good conscience, the custom will be considered as unfair and unreasonable. In Brokers Company versus Olympia Oil and Cocoa Company, the court recognized the custom as a reasonable and legitimate. For example, sensible, genuine and impartial in a nature. Then fourth important requisite of the valid custom is a consistent with the morality and public policy. Custom must not be inconsistent with the morality, public order and with other custom in some region. Then fifth important requisite for the valid custom is conformity with the statutory law. No custom, however old or reasonable, can stand if it is in conflict with the statute or the legislation or any part of it. Custom cannot infringe the fundamental right of any person. If he does so, it will be declared null and void. Then sixth important requisite for the valid custom is a custom must have been obligatory force. Custom must have been enjoyed as a right, because without this it cannot be said this is an exist compulsory pressure to conform. Custom must be followed openly and enjoyed fully without the need for the resources of a force. In a conclusion, we can say that to interpret any law, it is important to understand the sources of a law. This is why the subject of a law sources has attracted the attention of many jurist thinkers and legal theories. Custom is an ancient time, the most important source of a law. Now with the growth of a legislation and precedent, it is a decreasing. In this way, in today's lecture, we discuss about the sources of a law. Thank you very much.